Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome in for our second Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast today. For those joining for the first time, of which there are many of you in our audience today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And you're catching us on a really exciting day. Now, every February, we kick out all the dudes and spend the entire month celebrating and showcasing the most amazing women in STEM on planet Earth. We've got 50 broadcasts this month alone, featuring everything from Egyptologists to paleontologists, Arctic explorers, botanists, and more. But today, February 11th, is the International Day for Women in STEM. And so we are celebrating by partnering with our friends at the World Wildlife Fund of the United States and Canada to feature 6 incredible stories of some of the most illustrious scientists and explorers that they have. We just wrapped up with Mabel talking about amazing stuff and helping people and nature from space with satellites and drones alike. And we are keeping it going, talking about a little bit of cool technology today with a little bit of artificial intelligence. And specifically, we are joined by Dina in Atlanta, and she's going to talk to us today about the amazing work she does to help protect mangroves. Now, when I was a boy, mangroves were a habitat that most people didn't even know existed, certainly in my classroom. And now they're getting a little bit of a spot in the limelight because they are one of the most special, unique, and rare ecosystems on this planet. So if you're unfamiliar with mangroves, you are about to learn an awful lot from Dina and about some of the cool work that the WWF and beyond are doing with AI and more to help protect them. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us today, Dina, and welcome to the broadcast. So nice to have you.
Thank you. So nice for you to invite me over. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. And you also, I want to stress, we talked about the plushies that WWF has in our last broadcast. We had a capybara friend. You've got a seahorse, a peacock, and a monitor lizard behind you. So I think every one of the broadcasts as we go throughout the day should just up the ante and have more and more stuffed animals. So by the end, it's just going to be all stuffies. We'll see how it goes as the day goes on. But I'm going to zip it. I know you've got a lot to share with us. So feel free to dive in and take us away in a little bit of a journey.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm excited to talk about one of my greatest passions, mangrove ecosystems. So, I grew up in Mumbai, one of the most bustling cities in India, which is also a cluster of islands surrounded by mangrove forests and tidal flats. Growing up, I witnessed the ongoing land reclamation that transformed the city. And this early fascination with environmental changes around me led me to study ecology in college. Later, I moved to the US for graduate school, where I focused on understanding how natural and human disturbances impact these fragile ecosystems. At WWF, I have continued this work, contributing to projects across the world that highlight the vital role these habitats play in supporting people, climate, and nature. So, mangroves are these trees and shrubs that are found along the shoreline and edges of river bodies across the world. They are unique because of their ability to survive harsh saline environments through special adaptations. They have these magical root networks called pneumatophores, which can breathe air and expel salt. Their leaves can expel salt too. They also have something called as propagules, which are seeds that germinate while still attached to the plant. All these adaptations make them extremely resilient to their surroundings. Now, they're crucial for a variety of reasons, and let's see a few. Now, this video here demonstrates how mangrove forests protect shorelines from waves. As waves interact with the mangroves, they reduce energy and prevent erosion. In areas without mangroves, we see increased erosion and greater loss of beach area, highlighting their crucial role in coastal protection. Now, they not only support and protect our coast from erosion and storms, but they also serve as vital nurseries for a variety of fish species, such as snappers, groupers, prawns, crabs, or even anchovies. And their extensive root network provides shelter to the baby fish and protects them from predators. They are our climate superheroes. Now, just like we breathe in air, mangroves take in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which is a gas that causes climate change. Now, instead of releasing this carbon dioxide back into the air, mangroves trap it in their roots, trunks, and soil for hundreds or even thousands of years. So, just like a treasure chest, they bury this carbon deep in the ground, keeping it safe from the air. And by storing this carbon, they keep the air clean and help slow down climate change. Let's take a journey around the world to explore some of the most amazing and unique mangrove ecosystems. Our first stop is the Sundarbans, the world's largest mangrove forest spanning nearly 10,000 square kilometers across India and Bangladesh. It is 2 times the size of the state of Delaware. This unique habitat shelters the elusive Bengal tiger, the world's second largest tiger species. It is also home to many folklores. Deeply woven into the local culture, the Sundarbans is home to the folk deity Bonabi, or the Lady of the Forest. And you will find small shrines at the forest's edge serving as places of prayer where locals seek protection before entering the forest. Now, when you think of mangroves, you probably picture humid, wet environments. But did you know they also thrive in dry, arid deserts? Meet the Kharai camel. Kharai comes from the word khara, meaning saline. And these camels are essential to pastoral communities, providing them with milk, transport, and livelihoods in their harsh environments. They are a remarkable breed that can swim up to 3 kilometers into the sea. But guess what's important to these camels? Mangroves, as they feed on these mangroves and other salty vegetation in this dry environment. Mangroves also provide a crucial habitat for many other unique species, such as this flying fox, which is a large fruit bat that roosts in mangrove canopies and help pollinate these trees. Now, finally, closer to home, we have the Everglades. Now, while mangroves are found along the coast of Texas, Louisiana, and throughout much of southern Florida, the Everglades National Park in Florida is home to the largest mangrove forest in the United States, where you can find a unique mix of wildlife, such as Florida panthers, American alligators, manatees, and over 360 different bird species like spoonbills, storks, and egrets. Now, we saw how important these forests are. They harbor immense biodiversity, protect our coast from storms, and are key weapons in the fight against climate change. But they also face many threats. Now, how many of you are scared of ghosts? Did you know that climate change is turning this healthy, vibrant green mangrove ecosystem into ghost trees? Ghost trees are these swaths of dead white trees that form when seawater creeps into forested areas. Mangrove ghost forests are cropping up as a consequence of global sea level rise. As sea creeps inland, mangrove trees that are left stranded in deeper waters die. How do we battle these ghosts or the factors that help create them? This is where technology like AI can help. Now, many of you may have used Siri, Alexa, or Google for the weather before heading to school. Maybe you've used YouTube recommendations or even a smart speaker to play your favorite song. They are all examples of AI in our daily life. Now, here is another example of an app called Quick Draw. You can search it quickly by just typing Quick Draw on your Google search bar. Now, what it does is it learns by looking at millions of doodles. So when people sketch a tree, the AI finds patterns among the million doodles and improves its guesses over time. We can use the same logic and develop models to recognize a mangrove tree, a flamingo, and many other species. So the key here is data, but lots of data. And not just any data, but reliable data. And this is what we are doing in one of our projects called Manglaria. So in Manglaria, WWF and its partners have set up special instruments called sensors to study mangrove forests in 2 biosphere reserves in Mexico. Now, these instruments collect important data about mangroves, which can help us understand the health of the forest. And I'll give you some examples. So some of these instruments are weather stations that give us information about the weather but around these mangrove ecosystems, such as temperature, rainfall, wind. Then we have something called as the water depth and salinity loggers that measure water levels and also how salty the sea is or the water is. Then we have LiDAR drones that can help us scan and map the 3D structure of mangrove forests from the sky. We also have satellite imagery that captures detailed images of mangroves and how they change over time. And we have also set up camera traps that capture photos and videos of wildlife. And finally, we have these huge towers that measure carbon that mangroves absorb from the air and help us fight climate change. Now, think of these sensors or instruments as allies or friends that help Pac Man collect more points. Their mission to collect and relay vital data on the health of mangrove ecosystems, identifying areas that are most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, such as storms and you know high temperatures, etc. Now, I'll give you some examples how we are using some data that we've collected and how we are using AI to analyze that data. So this is some camera trap images. This is a bird, which is a yellow crowned night heron. Then we have the gray fox, a crab eating raccoon, and my favorite probably, great wood rail, the adult, and these adorable fish that our cameras have collected as well. So what AI does is it learns to recognize these birds that you see in these photos, just like you can learn to recognize your friends. It studies thousands of bird images and it notices details like the color, beak shape, feathers, and size to tell one bird from another. So when it sees a new photo, it compares it to what it has learned and figures out the bird species, like a super smart bird detective. So when a camera trap captures a gray-necked wood rail and its chicks, AI can analyze that image and say, hey, that's a gray-necked wood rail. Just like magic, but powered by technology and learning. Now, this is another example. This is a stunning drone image that was captured by my very super talented colleague in Mexico. Now, these images help map mangrove forests, but also measure different properties of the forest. Let's see how. This is an example of a point cloud, which is created by a LiDAR drone over our study sites. The different colors represent heights of the trees in the forest, and the little dots represent each part of the forest. Now, with these dots, scientists can create a 3D model of the forest and measure the size of the trees, how tall they are, how wide their trunks are, and how much space their branches take up. And the bigger the tree, the more carbon it can store. Now, I want you to look carefully at the satellite image on the left. Look closely and notice the different shades of green to spot where you can see mangroves, where you see water, and where you see some built up land area or sand. On the right, what the computer has done, it's colored each of these areas and classified them into mangroves, water, and some of these areas as land or sand. So just like how AI learns to recognize birds by their features, it can learn to spot mangroves in these images. And then by studying these images over time, scientists can track how mangroves grow and we can help restore and protect them. Now, the measurements taken using these different instruments or sensors with the help of AI can tell us what is causing these trees to die and turn into ghosts. This insight can help us understand how climate change affects mangroves and their health, enabling us to take steps to protect them. Just remember, mangroves can help climate change, ghosts can't. And guess what? So can you. There's so much you can do to help ease the strain on nature. Well, first, be curious and observe. Curiosity leads to discovery. Explore nature and ask questions about the world around you. You can start simply going outside and paying attention to everything like the trees, birds, and even bugs. You'll be surprised how much you can learn by just observing and asking questions about what you see. You can record and become a citizen scientist. By sharing what you observe, you can help real scientists like me. For example, you can use apps like iNaturalist to track wildlife. You can help study butterfly migration with monarch larva monitoring, or even track plant life cycles with Project Budburst. Another fun idea is to analyze and explore patterns. You can help Keep a nature journal and watch how things change over time. It's a great way to notice little shifts in nature and that you may not see at first. But finally, be kind to the environment and follow the golden rule: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Take care of your belongings so they last longer. And when you donate things instead of throwing them away, you keep trash out of landfills and help the planet. And if, like me, you love seafood, be a smart shopper. Look for the MSC sustainable label to help protect ocean life. Every small action counts and it all adds up together. Together, we can protect mangroves and the planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. That was spectacular and such handy tips at the end. That was marvelous. If you want to come out of screen shares, you can see us again, have a bit of a conversation. That would be awesome. I want to highlight, just for our Canadian friends too, for Americans, MSC is spectacular. And in Canada, we got something called Ocean Y. So same idea. Just look for these symbols when you're getting your seafood at grocery stores and restaurants. It'll really help you go a long way to protect mangroves and all sorts of ocean and marine and water ecosystems. So Dina, we covered a lot of ground there. There's a lot to explore in our Q&A. I'm going to open the floor to all our classes on YouTube and beyond, from Newfoundland, Nicaragua, Ontario, South Carolina, and beyond. So please do share as many as you can. One of our first questions for you was potentially an easy one, potentially very hard. Do you have a favorite mangrove and why? No pressure.
Oh, I do. So my favorite mangrove species is Heritier, and it is my favorite because it's a species that's found in a mangrove site that I worked for my PhD, which is in India, called Bhitarkanika. And it's also a species that's found in the Sundarbans. So the Sundarbans comes from the word Sundri, which is the local word for Heritier, the Heritier species.
Very, very cool. And I'm so glad you mentioned the Sundarbans in your program as well. It's such a special, special place. We could do pictures of it all day long. So I really encourage our classes, look that up and see some of the special species that are there. We had one on, you highlighted a few citizen science options for folks at home. And we covered this in our first broadcast earlier today with Mabel. So Zooniverse is just a classic go-to citizen science hub. Are there other places where maybe students could go and look at images and sort of help figure out what's a mangrove, what isn't, like some of the AI technologies? You don't need to have an answer to this. We just had a question about it if anything comes to mind.
At the moment, nothing comes to my mind, but I think what you can do is make a login or an account on iNaturalist, because iNaturalist, you can put all your images of the different wildlife, plant species, animal species that you see, and you can figure out which mangrove species it is.
So iNaturalist we use for one of our big programs every single year. It's the single greatest tool for exploring your local neck of the woods of all time. And you can find out what lives near you and go find some cool species. For our younger kids too, I'd recommend the Seek app, which is like the kids Pokemon Go style spin-off of iNaturalist. And you win like badges for every kind of cool creature that you take a picture of. So I encourage either one, iNaturalist, Seek, both super, super cool. And I'm so glad that's your answer. Thank you so, so much. We've had this question in a variety of conservation programs all month long. And one of the queries is, are there mangroves that are getting better? Certainly as classrooms, we've heard a lot about things getting worse over time. A lot of species, the numbers are declining. A lot of habitats are sort of being eaten away by various things. Are there success stories in mangroves where the work that we've done is starting to bring them back in any way, or places that are like right on the cusp of doing that?
Yeah, so some of our work focuses on restoring mangroves in different countries, and we are seeing those results. So, not everywhere mangroves are declining, but there are efforts by scientists in different countries around the world that is helping mangroves survive and, fight climate change. One of the examples that comes to my mind is this project called the Connected Mangrove Project, which is in Malaysia, where again, they've used AI and technology to put different salinity loggers and pH loggers to understand how mangroves grow with different water conditions, and figure out what helps them best survive in those areas. And that project was able to increase the survival rate of mangroves from 40 to 80% in that area.
Wow. I'm just getting that link up that I'll share with everyone on YouTube in just a second so you can take a look at Connected Mangroves in Malaysia. But what a special, special project. We had a question about some of the species that live there. You showed some really cool footage of birds walking around. There's a really amazing camel picture. I've never seen anything quite like that personally. Are there other examples of things and creatures of any kind that you can find in the mangroves that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, have you heard of the proboscis monkeys? You can find these monkeys in the forest, mangrove forests in Borneo and many other Southeast Asian countries. So that's another favorite. You also have something called as a monitor lizard, which is one of the plushies back there. Um, and Yeah, that's another favorite, and it's a personal favorite because while I was doing my field work in India, I would find these monitor lizards just like scurrying away from when I was walking along the trail, and they always reminded me of like Sherlock Holmes because they can sense yeah, because they have this extremely amazing sense of smell, and they use that to sense their surroundings. So like, yeah.
I love it. Thank you. That we've never had a monitor lizard Sherlock Holmes connection in one of our broadcasts in the past, so I appreciate you immensely. Also, there's such a big lizard. I'm not sure scurrying. If anyone's ever seen a monitor lizard, maybe even at a zoo in North America, they're hardy creatures. They can get many, many feet long. So, on this note of running into things like this in the mangroves, are there dangers that you face when you're in the mangroves? Is there anything you need to worry about? Whether it's disease, whether it's wild animals, whether it's anything that jumps to mind.
Well, like any other region that's remote and really, forested, there are animals that you have to take care of. And you can find you find alligators in the US, the same way you find crocodiles in India and other countries in Africa as well. And another example that comes to my mind is where a lot of places I could not access while I was studying mangroves because of these giant crocodiles. So you had to be very careful while stepping into the water because you would suddenly find them, roosting, basking in the sun. They won't do anything. They're very lazy creatures just waiting there until you go and poke them, of course. So you have to be careful. Um, Mangroves are also very famous for mosquitoes, so you will find a lot of mosquitoes in these forests, but they're nevertheless really beautiful.
That they are. You're the first person to ever say mosquitoes are beautiful. Thank you for that. Some of them are really quite stunning. Also, if we have any crocodile experts coming on later, don't take it personally that Dina called them lazy. There's no one to debate you right now on the laziness of crocodiles. I've
I
been to
just
the
find
Everglades.
them lazy because they would just bask in the sun, like glare at you.
Sounds pretty fun to me. That's like a good day. You're in the tropics. You get to relax. It's like a beach vacation, but as a reptile. It's very fun. Dina, we talked about this in one of our programs earlier today. Actually, we've talked about this quite a bit this month. Ground truthing. So this idea that we're scanning these ecosystems from above, we're figuring out what's mangrove and what isn't, we're assessing the habitat. Every time we do that, do we always send a team on the ground to be like, yep, the technology was correct? Or are we opening up more boundaries are we able to do it a lot faster and better through space and other technologies right now? Basically, do we need someone on the ground every time? And what benefit does that bring?
We do need people on the ground because technology is only a tool that helps us achieve those results. So definitely with technology, we can access more difficult parts, like where there are crocodiles and you cannot, map, or you cannot test or collect samples. Technology comes in handy there, but it's never, you need ground truthing.
For sure. Well, and I mean, not just from a scientific perspective, but as someone who's been out in the field yourself, and this is something that we come back to in a lot of our programs, there's nothing like being there in person. And certainly from the conservation angle, like the idea that you want to protect these places, you and I are the sort of people that, like, we saw pictures of these as a kid and we were inspired and we wanted to protect them. But to go to a place like the Sundarbans live and to witness it, you're transformed. It changes your entire perspective on life. And so it's important for our classes to know, if you get the chance to visit any of these ecosystems in life, whether it's close to home in Canada, the US, or internationally, it really has a profound impact on you and how you view the world and how you want to protect it. So I hope our kids will take the opportunity to get out there and do just that. We talked about AI a lot today. We talked about a lot of technology. Are there tips for students and particularly girls, since it's our International Day for Women and Girls in STEM, that how they could get involved in technology education? Like, is there a tool or platform that you'd recommend that they use?
Yeah, I would recommend Girls Who Can Code. And it's an amazing platform where girls can learn how to code. So
Yep.
that's my suggestion.
We talked about this a little before the broadcast. It's one of the best programs out there. It's huge across the United States and beyond. And I really can't encourage you enough. We'll pass that along in a link to all our classes at the end of the program. Coding programs, again, didn't exist when we were kids and now are so ubiquitous. So it's such a special time to be interested in these topics. Dina, this might be a really easy or really hard question. Is there a favorite part of your job that you have? What gets you up in the morning?
There is a favorite part of my job. I love working at WWF, but I love working on mangroves because I have a connection with them. They are, I grew up around them. But I think what's the favorite part of my job is working with different country offices, different communities, and knowing that my work has an impact.
Yeah. Is there, out of curiosity on the impact front, is there something that you've seen come to fruition in your time as a scientist that really was your crowning moment, like your favorite thing that you've had happen from something that you've done in the field or done in the lab or what have you?
There are many. I think it's all about the small things, like getting a code to work that which helps you analyze or look at how mangroves are changing, which can then eventually help national governments understand how they're changing over time. So I think it's for me, it's like these little small things that trickle into these big impacts. Um, at WWF, we work a lot with national governments, and one of the things that is really that has done a lot for mangroves is something called as a mangrove breakthrough, which gives targets for countries to restore and protect these ecosystems.
You talked a little in that about how mangroves are changing over time, and that's one of our next questions is how are they changing over time? Are the individual plants changing in some way? Is it the whole habitat? Are there sort of, I know you talked about this a bit in your presentation, but if you want to harp on it for changes in mangroves over time or if we're seeing that yet?
So it depends. You will observe changes. You will observe a little habitat changes over time, and it depends across the world how these habitats changes. But you would also observe like how individual tree species change with, like, say, temperature changes. So if it's really hot, some trees might not survive, or some areas they might do really well. Like in Texas, for example, as temperatures changes, mangroves are shifting in landwards. They're also shifting into marsh ecosystems, and so those are some of the changes that we are observing.
Fascinating. Is there a place that you'd go next or a place that you'd be most keen to work in the world that you haven't been yet? Next journeys per se?
There are many areas that I would like to visit, but I definitely want to go to Indonesia and work in the mangrove ecosystems there. Um, some areas in Southeast Asia, like for example, I want to see that flying fox roosting in the mangroves, which I
Yes.
haven't seen in person.
Two things on this that I want to harp on. One is that we feature explorers and scientists from all across the planet. And I can tell you that when people choose their favorite country that they've been to, when they've been to like 50, 60 places, Indonesia is always near the top of that list, which is really special. And thank you so much for being someone that of all the creatures you could choose, flying fox is one of the ones that you go to. It's a bat that has like a 5-6 foot wingspan. It's ridiculous. And there are thousands, if not millions of them in certain places. They're crazy creatures. We should all talk about flying foxes all the time. That's what we're going to start after today's broadcast. Dina, this has been a lot of fun. Time flies and you're having fun. So we are nearing the end of the show. Is there any final message about AI and mangroves, about the World Wildlife Fund, anything you want us to leave us with before we say farewell together?
Well, I want to leave a message for the kids that who are watching here. I did provide some suggestions how they can be change makers, and I'd really like them to be the ones that are like, because they are our future. So I would start by saying, or end by saying, be curious. Yep. And ask questions, because that's how I started, and that's how I am a scientist today.
There's no better message than that. And I mean, the nice thing about kids these days, and I mean, honestly, like when we were in school, the push for conservation was pretty good, but kids these days live and breathe this stuff. They know the challenges. They know what we need to do. They're already taking action as classrooms. So honestly, I'll just highlight that, keep doing what you're doing. If you want to follow some of Dina's amazing suggestions at the end of her broadcast, this is going to be on YouTube forever, so you can check it out. You can check out our whole WWF series. We've got 4 more programs on the go today alone. So lots to explore and discover. Dina, with that, I'll wrap up our broadcast. Thank you so much for coming on. Stick around when we're done live, but have a wonderful day, everyone, and we can't wait to have you for more soon.